This is Jessica Murphy's post on community engagement. Community engagement means making a consistent, sustained commitment to serving others and developing connections. So I'm going to start by telling you what community and what authentic need we're serving with the service group. So I'm part of a service group called Art Relief Crew, and we work with something called Steps with Tira. So Steps with Tira is a vocational training centre for differently abled people within Bangkok. They work with both adults and children to create an authentic space for them to hold within the wider community. They provide jobs and sustainable employment and enterprise for people who wouldn't necessarily usually have those spaces. And it's just a beautiful space where a community comes together and everyone benefits. Ways in which we've developed the connection. So ways in which Steps does their work include having multiple cafes, bakehouses, and the vocational training centre. So the trainees will also go into non-Steps bakeries or non-Steps kitchens, such as El Mercado, and go and work there. So they do some outreach. One thing that the Art Relief Crew did this year, which created a positive change and added value to that community, was created games, decorations, and entertainment at their Halloween disco. So the leader of Steps with Tira reached out to us. Their name is Max, and they reached out to us to say they had been given a space in this hotel on Sukhumvit Road that was going to be catered by the hotel, and would we like to get involved either making decorations or running games. So students had the opportunity to either make decorations and set up the space, or make decorations, set up the space, and or attend the event. And so it started in late October, where we really met the community that we were serving. We did a few little games, and what was so wonderful was how much we all got from it. So we were overwhelmed by how generous the community was, how fun the community was, how much pleasure we all got from interacting with people that were different from us, like really young children, children that were a similar age to our students that were older, trainees that were older than our students, and their families. All came and participated in our games. They were really happy that we were there. It gave the parents a chance to kind of go and have a sit down and speak to each other, and they were able to kind of worry less about their children at that time. They were able to engage with their friends, and it made it a really nice community event because the parents were able to sit and have a laugh and have a drink with the parents, and the children were able to be entertained, and we just got so much from it. And I think one of the things that really stood out for me was we were quite concerned about, it has to be the right game, it has to be really engaging, is it enough, is it enough, is it enough? And most people were just really happy that there was something, and they were quite happy to do the same thing again and again and again. They were quite happy to walk past me a million times and say boo, and I'd act scared every time. And it was just really exciting just to have this very sweet interaction where it felt like it was a really authentic space where we just held a real opportunity for growth, an opportunity for learning and giving. And I feel like we probably got just as much from it, if not more, than the people we were supposed to be serving. Like, our service group was supposed to be there to give something to somebody else. And I think, honestly, I felt like I got more from that event than I gave. I felt like just by being there and smiling and interacting and authentically holding the same space and holding a respectful space with the people within that group, I could just get so much more from it and give so much more to it, because I just wasn't afraid anymore. The other thing that we did that was really great was on the back of the disco, which was a new thing this year. Every year we hold an art relief auction that's been going on for the past few years, and last year it had been cancelled because of COVID. So Steps for Tira has just opened a new space here in Bangkok at the Commons, and it was a brand new space, and what they wanted was to drum up a community space that people could come and access, so people could find out that they were there, they could find introduced to the food, introduced what Steps do, and then we had the art auction. Now, the art auction this year was bigger and better than it had ever been before. With the help of Kun Mik, we had an incredible variety of donations from real practicing artists of great value in Bangkok and wider Thailand. So there was these incredible names and faces attached to our auction, which made it feel really prestigious for our students, community and artists who were held alongside them. And it was fantastic to see that some of our students' work was being sold for a really admirable amount of money that you wouldn't be surprised to see these professional artists' work going for. And so the way that it worked was that we had about 100 pieces of artwork that were donated from our school community, the wider community, including Paron School of Art, Attic Studios, and an artist who's friends with Max called Charlie, also runs oil painting workshops, and she asked that everyone at the workshop donated at least a piece of work and attended the event. And they were just gorgeous pieces of work that were really fun and varied, and there was our school students, there was these professional artists, there was parents, there was friends of NIST, there was my friends, there was friends from friends of friends who'd seen it on social media and had that had the inkling to donate work. So there was like digital pieces that were sent. It was amazing. It was this beautiful, varied, different, diverse body of work. And so all these people came together. They were bidding, they were buying food, they were having a drink, they were sharing this space. And overall on that night, including ticket sales, we raised about 200,000 baht. In terms of the value and the positive change that's made, one of the really cool things is that money has been able to have a direct impact, because unfortunately, like a week later, there was an outbreak of COVID, and it meant that potentially they weren't able to keep the cafe at the Commons open, and so they had to readdress their business model. And this just gave them an opportunity to have less of a fiscal risk within this new business and have more of a safety net. And it opened the door to this wider community getting cakes and lunch and food from Steps for Tira. It meant that more people were thinking of them for a cafe, more people were thinking of them for a caterer, more people were thinking of them during lunch times, during evenings, and so that built up their trade as well. So that was a really good thing that we did, where we really impacted a community. I do still think that we got more out of the event than necessarily Steps did. So one way that we want to make sure that it's a sustainable service group is that we ensure our role of reflection, and we think about what our service mantra is, what we're saying we're doing at Art Relief Group, and what we actually end up doing. And one thing is There's been recent school changes within the last few years. There's been changes in our school day, which meant that what our service group intended to do, which was provide art education to Steps with Tira, hasn't been able to be sustained, hasn't been able to happen for the last few years. The same, we've been saying that we'll go on a Saturday, we've been saying we'll go once a month, we'll be saying we've been having these things, but because of negotiations around COVID, it's just not happened. And so I think one thing that I really want to make sure that we're doing is building on that next year. And as we reflect on it, we embed those things that once a month, once a cycle, once a quarter, once a half year, we have these celebrations where we go and authentically make connections with the community. I think the great thing about the auction is the money that it raises. I think the difficulty is we don't actually know who we're raising money for, and a lot of the people in that service group will never actually understand the impact that that money will have on the community because they don't actually know who these people are. We don't know them by name, we don't know them by personality, we just know them as other, and I think that's a really dangerous space for it to hold. And it should be holding a space of authenticity, holding a space of value, holding a space of unity. So the more we come together and do those authentic interactions, I think the better it will be. So more art steps, more in the community, more authentic engagement. So as the students who've gone through the first year reflect on what they want to do to make it better next year, they hold the space of development, they share the space of growth, they share the space of development, they share the space of wanting it to get better. And I think that's a really important part of making sure it's sustainable, is because it's not owned by any individual. It's not owned individually. It's owned by this community of the Art Relief crew. The connections that I've been able to develop from it are more than just, obviously, Max and the wider community. It's also helped me to develop connections with a range of artists, which is something that's fantastic for me. And it's helped me to develop connections with parents and people within the community of Steps with Tira, and that's just been invaluable and helped me really understand some of like my friends and my family who have had learning differences or learning difficulties, and how better to accommodate them and to work with them and to speak to them and to help them grow and to just feel confident to support them. And I think that for me, it's helped me connect with that community, but that's also helped me expand outside of it. In terms of how it's developed me as a global citizen and the understanding that I've developed from it, when we think of our lives, we know potentially that we have a space of privilege, or that the fact that I'm able-bodied and I am able to manage any difficulties that I have, and I'm accommodated and acknowledged within the community. I think that's a real space of privilege. And then seeing that how that works within Steps with Tira, and how Steps with Tira has made an authentic space. This space didn't exist before, and Steps with Tira have gone. It's been created to ensure that this space is held for future learners. So a person who conducts their daily life with a commitment to understanding others, who makes decisions with an awareness of how they affect communities locally and globally, and who advocates and hold themselves accountable for social and environmental sustainability, is what we consider to be a global citizen. And so if I just break down a few of those things, the fact that it's a part of my week, that every Monday we do something for Art Relief, makes me think just not only about my own decision and how they affect that local community, but also how I need to respectfully hold spaces for more learners and more people than just neurotypical, and just acknowledge and be aware and embrace neurodiversity and aim for a space of understanding rather than encouraging difference. I think I really advocate for the social and sustainability. I really want to make sure that people understand how wonderful it is that Steps Vatira are doing this, just so that people outside, when they leave Bangkok, take the time to stop and say, well, where else does this exist? And like, this was a fantastic thing that happened, and how else could I do something like that within the community that I move into? Or what do I need to do to make sure that I'm acknowledging more people within my community? And I think the other thing that we don't always want to acknowledge is how much we get from service. And I think it's really important to understand that service is something that has really helped me like develop. It's given me a new understanding. Like, I absolutely stressed myself out. Like, it was so much work, it was such a big thing, but the sense of achievement and sense of accomplishment after having both the auction and the disco, I was on such a high. I was so happy, I was so invigorated. I told everyone, and everyone was talking about it. And I think the more that we can acknowledge how these spaces are held and how much we get from giving, the better the world's going to be. So yeah, Art Relief Crew every Monday in my room. Bring your enthusiasm, bring your art skills. Feel free to come if you're a learner, or if you're developing, or if you just want a break from your everyday studies. Thank you.